Next up is here to really advance all women in business, but we obviously can't do that without our allies. So it's an organization open to anybody. And what I wanted to let y'all know is there's a couple of different ways. We're here today because part of my group that I work with is called Regional Alliances, and college outreach is a part of that pillar. So Patricia is on my committee, and she's been working with Marymount for years now, she says,
That's
right?
7 years, 7 or 8
Yeah.
years, and
Yeah.
I'm a graduate.
That's right.
Yeah.
So
I don't want to say which year.
We don't have to.
so you can see what some of the potential opportunities are in the future for networking and socializing and just really kind of building your network from that perspective. So you're going to hear from these women here, professionals. Take their names down, or even if you have your phone handy, if they're on LinkedIn, link in with them. Start building your network now, because a lot of what Next Up is about building the network. The other piece too is while you're on there looking them up, look up Next Step New York. It's free to follow them or be a part of that community. And then Next Up is our national organization. You can also follow them, and you'll be able to see events that we hold across the year. And it's a lot of, business topics, but also skills driving, networking, mentoring, and things like that. So we also offer a student membership. Annually, I believe it's $99 a year. So it gets you into a lot of our events for free, and some of the other ones that are paid, it's a nominal fee. But if it's something that you're interested in, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn and I can share more information. But that's why we're here. We're here to share some more information with you, ask questions, be as engaged as you would like. I know we have a lot of questions for the panelists, but we're here to hear what you guys have on your mind too, okay? I'll turn it over to you, Patricia.
Okay, so as I mentioned before, I am a graduate, 1978. So I've been around for a while. And I've been really involved in keeping up with Marymount over the years. And probably about the last 7 to 8 years, I started out with the outreach program. But I also started out basically 1 year after, which is now called Next Up. It was called Network for Executive Women. And that was in 2001 when it was created at a round table in Chicago at the FMI, which is the Food Marketing Institute annual trade show. And that's where, at that trade show, that's where all products, consumer products and food products are showed at on an annual basis, and different like Stop and Shop, ShopRite, Prestige, they'll shop around the buyers to figure out what products they want to bring into the store. And the reason I was there is because in 2002, I actually brought a product to market, laundry detergent called Sofonique, Safonique. And in 2004, it was also FMI's, one of FMI's new product, international product, award-winning product. But outreach, I thought for college outreach that a lot of students do not understand the workplace, what they need to do. So with outreach, we decided that we would go to different universities and talk about different careers or how to take your career and go to another level. So the theme for today is, how do you pivot? How do you start out? How do you take all your skills over the many years of your career? How to use those skills for other opportunities, taking risks. And so I'm speaking on how I went from one thing to another. When I came to Marymount Manhattan College, I was coming from Bronx Community College as a nurse who was going to get her degree in business, which I did, but decided while I was here that I did not want to do nursing. I just wanted to do business. And I went into manufacturing operations. But let me say, as I pivoted over the last 30 years, I've had to change my career because I was married to, and still married to, a college coach who traveled around and moved me around, and there was no internet. So I was always picking up a new career. So that I've had to pivot many, many times. So that's why I have a manufacturing background. That's why I know Barbara, because I did fundraising. So I have a very varied background, but I pivoted back into nursing along with my manufacturing in 2008. And I have been doing nursing and manufacturing since. So I have a background in hospice. And then the other thing that I wanted to discuss was that when you're pivoting and you're networking, other opportunities come your way. So in 2022, I was published with Random House on caregiving. So I'm a published author. So, and this happened not because I was on LinkedIn, because I was on the board and I did not graduate from the school of Columbia University's alumni for global sustainability. And I was on that I was in communications with and networking with someone that was interested in my background expertise to publish a book. So the whole point of this is never stop talking to people, because you never know when the opportunity is going to come your way. So I'll leave you with that. And now I wanted to introduce you to Rachael Gatling, because she has a background in supply chain. And as I mentioned, I actually put a product on the market. And in today's world, when you see Amazon and you see, what is it, Spotify? Is it Spotify? How you want to put a product on the market, it has to go through a supply chain. So that's very important in that, and also entrepreneurship, because technically I'm an entrepreneur too. So I have a lot of different skill sets, but I've combined all those skill sets into doing many things. And I like to feel like I'm a little successful at it, but it is a lot of work. So I'm going to put this now on to Rachael so she can discuss the different, once I guess you would say, once it leaves the manufacturing facility, how the different parts of it goes through the supply chain so the consumer can have it in their hand. So
Supply chain, oh my goodness, who's heard of that before? Now have you heard of it because of supply chain issues during COVID, or you knew other things as well? I think everybody started to know supply chain then. And I got into it because I didn't know what it was at first. And so I started doing things, and I could go on, but I know we have time limits, but also please ask, don't be shy today. When I started, I just knew that product that was supposed to get a place was delayed, and they kept saying, it's delayed, it's delayed. And I said, what does that mean? At the time I was doing customer service and I got complaint calls. So I said, let me find out what this is about. And I found out that supply chain was the way to get a product from the thought to getting what they call raw materials, to getting it into our hands. And I think my biggest aha moment was I was at one point doing planning for a fragrance, a perfume, a cologne, whatever you want to call it. But if you order a cologne or you buy a cologne, it never comes in that bottle. It is the spray, it is the bottle, it is what they call the juice, which is what you spray. It is the nozzle, it's everything. And you have to put that all together. So first you plan a fragrance, you decide how you want to market it and when you want to bring it to life. And then you order all those separate components, bring it to a facility like the manufacturer to get it all put it together in a bottle that you would recognize. Put that label on it to have that famous person or whatever, that famous fragrance that you want. So that's the name. Put it in a box, because then there's still a box and the insert to pack it in so that when you move it, it doesn't break. And then you put those orders together and then you ship it to where it goes to. So first it's not to you, it's to the store, or maybe it is to you, but it goes to a store, to a facility, and then it gets to your home. And that's supply chain, getting it from how it starts in different pieces to being in your hand for you to use. When I found out about all that, for some reason, I was mesmerized, and I loved it because there were not a lot of women in supply chain. So I said, I'm going to break through this. And I got to be a part of a solution to actually put something in someone's hand. Now, the reason why you heard about it during COVID was because a lot of times to do all those special activities of putting it together, sometimes it can be very, very expensive in the United States, because you have to have a facility. That means you have to have land, you have to have workers, and we have to pay at least a minimum wage. But you have some countries that can make it cheaper. They just have a stronger supply chain process, so their labor is not as expensive. You know, cost of living is different depending on where you are. They can have facilities that land is not as expensive. Products are not as expensive. So you say, wait, you specialize, especially countries like China, you specialize in this. I'm going to collaborate with you so you can make the spray, you can make the packaging, you can make all these things, ship it to us. And it's more expensive on a plane. Sometimes you use a plane when you are rushing, but you might use a boat. So it takes more time. You order in bigger quantities, have the boat that comes over to the United States. Well, remember, COVID shut everything down. And remember how impactful it was in China. We couldn't get any product from there. So if you didn't have enough inventory, that's another word, then your stuff was stopped. Your product couldn't come. And then people are trying to order and order and order. And remember, there was panic. So they were over ordering things like toilet paper. Oh my gosh. I don't know if you're using all that, but okay. But so then if you couldn't get the product, people were ordering the product. What happens? Supply chain issues. And yes, like you were saying, the price goes up but also you just don't have it. So that's when people started to know. But it's so complex. And it's so, to me, exciting that I love to get the product to the customer. And that's what Patricia's alluding to. Like, she has experience, and this is what I do day in and day out.
Right. And so the point that I wanted to bring out after you can relate to, she's more into the 21st century, and I was in the 20th century of manufacturing. So when I left at Marymount Manhattan, I went to Avon to produce health and beauty products. And I also was fascinated by the fact of working with research and development and watching how a product was put together step by step, the components, the ingredient, working with the engineers. And because you didn't have the internet and there was a lot more research, being a lot more creative, I think, in solving problems. And since this class is like strategic management, you're always solving problems. And I feel like when you're in operations management, what I enjoy doing, that I was going to always solve problems. And basically, as I've been moving through my years of my career, that's still how I am, always solving problems and putting it into whatever people are not doing correctly. And at the time too, when I went into it, I was the first African-American at Avon in manufacturing with a degree. They weren't even hiring women with degree, and they weren't even promoting them. So for me to go into management as I was hired and to work in that, and I was 24 with a lot of women and men that were like 50 and 60 and 70 years old that I had to manage. And that was also another challenge for me, but I was with them for like almost 10 years. And I would say I also did planning for them too, strategic planning for their sales and manufacturing. But I basically spent most of my time in operations. But that was a challenge too, managing other people that were much older than me. And a good way I could say that helped my management skills is I always looked at the individual and looked at them to see what their talents were, how they communicated, what they brought to the table. And I worked with them because I think people are more happy when they're using their talents along with what they have as a responsibility within that position. So I just wanted to share that with you. So now Barbara, her and I have been friends because as I went on my path, we just finished my manufacturing. And I traveled with my husband on his career. I went into development and I became a fundraiser in academia. And I met Barbara when I came back to New York after being working for Florida A&M in their fundraising department, which I created one fundraiser 29 years ago, and it's still going. It's still making money for them. And that was the brick campaign called the 21st Century Walkway. And they're still working it. And so meeting Barbara, I learned I was still young and Barbara had a lot more experience and she became the president of the organization, Women in Development, WID. And I'm still a little involved in going to activities. And I think you are too, right, Barbara?
A little bit.
Yeah. And so Barbara started out also doing one thing and winded up into development, and she's going to share her career. Go ahead, Barbara.
All right, well, I'm so happy to be here. April 1st is kind of one of my favorite days, and I was really working hard to come up with something for you guys, and I'm very disappointed. because I really didn't succeed in coming. But the day's young. I could say something and you're not really gonna know. I just, Pat, I'll do anything she asks. And when you listen to her career, I mean, your head spins because she's done everything and she's done it so well. So I'm always thrilled to be
Thank
on
you.
any panel with her. So I grew up loving sports. I grew up in Queens. I love sports. I became a competitive tennis player and I went to Queens College. I'm proud to say, alumni of 1976, a couple of years before you. And believe this or not, I was the last graduating class of free tuition in the city university. So my entire college education was free. And I also got a master's degree in Queens College. So a lot of gratitude. City University is a wonderful system. It's still pretty reasonable, but kind of crazy when you think about free tuition at this point. And so I went to Queens College and I was a phys ed major. And I found a real community with women athletics and sports. And I decided that I really wanted a career in college athletics. I had a real passion and my mind was really set and focused on that. And I was very fortunate. My first job was as director of women's athletics and head tennis coach at Queens College. And then I moved from there to Fairleigh Dickinson University. And I was moving along. And after a few years, I had applied for a head position as director of men's and women's athletics. And that's the first time it was a real awakening. I was crushed that I didn't get the position, and someone who I guess I felt was a little less qualified, a man who got the position. And I realized that it was a very male-dominated field and the opportunities that would be before me would be very limited. And so I made a real pivot, as Pat would say. And at the time, I was director of women's athletics at Columbia University. And I kind of stopped applying for director positions because I really didn't think it would happen. And I had many colleagues at the university, which is really important to really, as everyone keeps saying, networking and get to know your colleagues. And I had some friends in the development department at Columbia. I didn't even know what fundraising and development was at the time. But when you're in college athletics, you work with a lot of alum, they kind of give money. They used to be called boosters, and now, we call them donors. And so they offered me a job in the fundraising department at Columbia. And that was a real pivot. And it was hard, I didn't know, it wasn't a career I had chosen. I didn't know that much about the field. But you take a chance, you take a risk. And kind of never look back. And that really started my career in fundraising. And I loved it. And from Columbia, I went to Fordham, and then I went to the YMCA of Greater New York. I went to New York Law School. And I really found my passion at the YMCA of Greater New York. There were 19 branches of the Y in 5 boroughs. And we raised money for children, for older people. They used to say the Y was sort of cradle to grave. It was a program for everyone. There was an after-school program. There was a summer camp. We raised money. I remember we had a fundraiser and it'd say $1,000 sends, 10 kids to camp for a week. Come on, put your hand up, put your hand up. And, it was that kind of really grassroots fundraising. And it was so impactful because you could raise the money and go to an after-school program and see what was happening with these young people. And so that was a great opportunity. I had a boss at the Y who really was a mentor. She was a real pain in the neck. She would call at all hours of the night. She would get into every detail. If you had a folder that was red, she wanted to make sure you had a clip that was red.
Oh, wow.
She was picking out the color of the napkins. And I can go on, but you know what? I learned a lot from this woman. And I also learned about leadership and team building. And it was really, I didn't think I would leave this place because I loved it. And of course, an opportunity came about at New York Law School. And at the time, I was adopting my daughter, who is now 28, from China. And I took the position at the law school because it really afforded me more flexibility and time. And it was really a decision based on family. So I got to the law school and I spent a few years there, and I realized that I just didn't have the same passion as I had at a place like the YMCA. And I was fortunate enough that a headhunter search firm came and I got a position at the Ad Council. Maybe many of you are familiar with the public service announcement, really inspired change. So it's everything from Smokey Bear, which we know, to Crash Dummies, to Friends Don't Let Friends Drive Drunk. It's a really wonderful organization. And we recently, before I retired, did a huge $60 million campaign on vaccine hesitancy to really get Americans educated on the vaccine during the COVID pandemic. And that was really a very rewarding experience. And I realized, that I spent 20 years at the Ad Council, and the reason was every campaign gave you something new to think about, to educate yourself. And it was an impactful. We did a lot of measurement and research, so you could see the money you raised and how it affected Americans. We tracked everything. So it really was a wonderful place. And I retired about a year ago. Kind of miss it. I've been trying to pat that I got to get busier and do a little bit more consulting work, which I'm doing.
I have some spots in next up if you care to join my committee.
We'll talk later. Is that April Fool's? And, I have a little bit more to say, but I think you had asked some questions, so I will
Well-
stop at that and please feel free to ask
Well,
questions.
one of the questions for both of y'all, and then I'll get to Terry, because she's to me a different, she's a little on. No,
Well, straight.
no, she's more
Research
to
another
me,
word.
she's in the business, but she's more on the science side. Whereas I think we're more on the customer side, operations. And so as you graduated from college, one of the questions I had was, did you both pursue what you were interested in when you graduated?
No,
Well, why don't you go first, Rachel, and say what?
I had fits and starts. So I would say way back in 12th grade, I used to work half a day at NASA. So I was big time, I think. So I would go to the 12th grade in the morning till lunchtime, take an hour for lunch, and then have to work at NASA from 1 to 5. It was part of my graduation program. And I would work in the Office of Occupational Health. So we filed claims. Unfortunately, some of the people through their work environment had asbestos poisoning. So we would file those claims. And they thought I would stay after college, after high school, but I said, no, I want to do some other things. So when I was thinking about what I should go into for college, first someone said, okay, IT, because you can make a lot of money. Okay, so I tried that for probably a week and I said, no, that's not me. And then they said, well, Rachel, you should go into newscasting because you like to talk. And I said, okay, let me think about it. No. And then the third one, they said, go into law because you could also make a lot of money. Now, remember, I keep saying they. I'm listening to people, and it's actually people close to me, like family and close friends. I probably did a semester of law and it just didn't move me. It was exciting, but it didn't move me. But I was always interested in business. So I said, let me do what I'm thinking about. I don't know exactly what, but at least let me try. So that's how I started. Fits and starts, and that's how I ended. I ended with my master's, and then I found supply chain, but not at first. It was sales, it was customer service, and then it was supply chain. So talk about doing like this. And it was okay, because when I hit what I wanted and what I loved, something just sparked, and I knew I was in the right place.
And that was like me. I went to school for nursing, and I'm in it now because I really like helping people, and I'm in an area that I'm very interested in now, Alzheimer's and developmental. But when I first went to nursing school, I really didn't know what area. Plus, there wasn't a lot of different diverse departments to go to or careers to go to as it is now. So when I came to Marymount, coming from a family of business, my mother and father, and my father had his own business. He was a butcher. He had his own butcher shop. My mother was an entrepreneur. And so going into business just was very natural for me. But then I also had a lot of family members that were nurses. So that was why when you talk about people talking,
Yes.
that's how I really was involved in nursing, because I saw it throughout my my childhood, everybody was going to school to be a nurse or was a nurse. So I think you do have influences from your family and friends because of your environment and who you were around. But when I came to Marymount, I just fell in love with the program. And I came here because one of my aunts was a nurse and she had received her bachelor's degree because Marymount was accepting nursing credits at the time. And so it was the easiest thing. But then when I arrived here, I really fell in love with the business program. And I think the business program really set me ready for business at that time. And I'm sure it's doing that today. So we had a good chair and you have a good chair.
I got really lucky because, as I had said, I really loved athletics and sports. And when I graduated from Queens College and I had worked as a student athlete, I had worked pretty much all my years at the college in a variety of jobs in the recreation department, intramurals, and I was offered a job as the head tennis coach. So my career was a little different because I found my passion really early and I was able to really take that career, and I spent probably the first 15, 18 years of my professional career in college athletics at a number of different universities. But then I ran into this roadblock that I told you about, where I thought my career was just going to be limited. And that was hard. You know, I did something I loved. I didn't think I would have a different career. I thought I'd probably stay with college athletics my whole career. And then all of a sudden, this pivot. And it really taught me about taking a chance, taking a risk, learning something else. And, you know, things work out. And if that hadn't worked out, you know, I'm convinced now that some other opportunity would have happened. And it was a scary time because I didn't really know about university development and fundraising. I didn't know if I'd like it. I didn't know if I'd find a passion the way I had in sports. So mine was a little opposite. Started out in the career I wanted and then kind of pivoted into another career I wasn't sure I was going to love, and ended up very fortunate that I also found great passion in the work I did.
So now we're going to put our eyes on to Terri because she's also done several pivots in her career, and how she winded up at MIT, have an engineering degree, but she's also an entrepreneur and she's done quite a few things, and she's pivoted a few times because she's also had a career with children. And as I watched her mature, grow from childhood to now, I could say that she really still is an entrepreneur. And we have lots of conversations about all the different things we do. Mind you, we are the same sign too, so I think it has something to do with our personalities.
Probably.
Yes, so Terri, would you start off with telling us what school you went to and how you arrived to where you are today and what your plans are for the future?
Sure. So I'm going to start with high school. I went to Fiorello LaGuardia High School of Music and Art, which used to be in Harlem on 135th and Convent. It is now, what do they call it? LaGuardia High School of the Arts, which is in Lincoln Center. And there's like this little, rivalry thing, because we only think of the school as the original school on the hill, the castle on the hill. So when I went to music and art, I thought I was going to be a musician. My classes were like 4 or 5 classes a day of academics. The other 3 classes were all music. So like I was going to do music. But if any of you had the opportunity to meet my father, that was never going to happen. Because his whole thing was, you're not going to be, out. He always used to say, I don't want to see you in front of Lincoln Center, like, with your flute box open and, people giving you money and what have you. My dad was just like not having it. He was fine with me going to music and art, kinda, after I didn't get into Bronx science, but that's a whole nother story. So I thought I was going to be a musician, but I also realized that I did need to do something academic. So I had to think about, like in high school, what did I like to do? I was a pretty good student, and I loved math. I absolutely love math. To this day, I still love math. I count everything. I count how many steps it takes from here to that door to, like, I am just like constantly thinking numbers. So, went through that whole process of looking at colleges, which was awkward in itself, and ended up deciding that I really wanted to go to Northwestern. I had never been to Chicago, never visited the school. They used to have these college fairs where you'd go and you'd walk around to 50 million tables and what have you. And I'm talking to all these different schools, and like Northwestern just sat with me. So I made the decision I was going if I got in. Did like, oh my goodness, had to be like 10 college applications and got into Northwestern. So once I got into Northwestern, nothing else really mattered. But then my dad came home, and this is back when like applications were paper, like there was no computer, and he brings home this application for MIT, and I'm like, what is an MIT? What is the Massachusetts Institute of Technology? Like, why? Like, what's the deal? He's like, don't worry, it's a great place. You love math. That's the great place for math, engineers, and whole bit. And I'm like, Dad, I already got into Northwestern. He was like, no. So we're talking about the first pivot, right? So I applied not thinking anything of it, literally not thinking anything of it. I mean, I remember applying, I remember my high school college counselor saying, there is no way you would ever get into this school. And I kind of believed her at the time because I was, so musically, I had all this music stuff. But one thing led to another, and I got in. I was like, okay, I got in, like, great, Northwestern. My dad's like, nobody gets into the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and turns them down. I do, and he was like, no. So I ended up going, and it was, I'll talk about pivot number 2. When I left music and art, I was 24th in the class of 638, which I think is a pretty good, right? So I was feeling myself a little bit. And then get to MIT, everybody's a valedictorian. So 24 was like, huh, like you think you're 20. Yeah, and it basically was. I had to pivot, like I'm with these geniuses. I'm with geniuses. I can't even, there isn't a word to explain all these students who had patents on stuff that they had invented and all this. And here I am with my little math and my little music, and so that was pivot number 2. It was a crucial pivot because of the fact that I really didn't think that I belonged there. I loved math, but that place was so much more stressful and it was so hard. And after that first year, I said, okay, that's it. I'm not gonna come back. But my father had told all of New York City, he would go to all his little favorite places. I told everybody his daughter was at MIT, and I was like, I can't really, disappoint him. So I actually stayed there basically for him. I stayed there and I struggled for 5 years. 5 long years trying to figure out what. I started off with a majoring in math. That lasted all until like the first test of the first semester. So that went out the window. Then I took a course, there was like an introductory course in materials engineering. Understand, I didn't even know what engineering was, but I knew I was at the school that it was. So I did this materials engineering thing. That didn't work out. I switched over to chemical engineering because I thought chemical engineering and chemistry were the same thing. Found that out the hard way, so left that. So by the time I actually decided what my major was, I was in my 3rd year. I was in my 3rd year, and it was apparent that no matter what I majored in at that point, I was gonna have to stay an extra year or so. So I ended up doing civil engineering and minoring in architecture. I had to minor in architecture because I couldn't draw, but I really liked architecture. So I kind of did like a special kind of project in architecture so I could have this minor. So I did civil engineering and architecture. So now we're up to pivot number 3. Pivot number 3 is now I'm graduating. I have this degree. What am I doing with it? My grades were terrible, but I got out of MIT, so I have that. I have the paper, but I had all these friends that had really great grades and what have you. And I have this degree, and this company came and said, hey, we're doing this management trainee program, and it's in construction. And I'm like, maybe, okay. So they're a big construction company actually in Rhode Island. They're out of Providence, and the management training program first year was like in the office learning about estimating and scheduling and all this other stuff I didn't know anything about, which I found interesting. I had no idea that I would like that. like shocking. If somebody said to me, you know, in high school, you're gonna go into construction and estimate, I'd be like, no way. So I went ahead and did that first year, and then the second year was out in the field. If the first year surprised me that I liked it, the second year was even more shocking because I loved being out in the field. I loved being in, you know, this open land, all dirt, there's nothing there. And then 2 years later, or 2.5, 3 years later, here's this building that I built. So I love being able to go back to New England now and look at some of the buildings that I built, because there was nothing like being out on that job site and watching all these contractors coordinating, and I'm doing project engineering and I'm figuring out estimating and all this stuff. And then at the end, 3 years later, there's a building. And a nice thing about the company, I don't know if all construction companies do this, but when we started, every time we started a project and we built the foundation, when the foundation was just about finished, we would take our hard hats and we would throw it in the you know, we would sign our name and put our dates on it. So any of those buildings ever come down, you look through the bubble, there's Terry's hard hat. So I already had a whole lot of pivoting before I even knew what pivoting was. All right. So I want to put that out to you, that you just need to be somewhat fluid in you know, you might think this is it. You're in this square box. You know, I want to be a doctor. I absolutely want to be a doctor. I have so many friends of mine who wanted to be doctors and are something completely different, you know, did the whole pre-med completely different. So moving forward, I got out, let's see, was working for Gilbane, was there for like 3 years. And then my husband and I met. He was from Boston, I was from New York. And we both decided, you know, we're going to be together. Neither one of us wanted to live in Boston, and I didn't want to come back to New York. So we ended up moving to Philadelphia. And my company, I went to Gilbane. I said, hey, I'm moving to Philly. Is there something down there? That were like, oh, we've got this project that's starting. It'll be perfect for you, Terry. I'm like, great. Pivot number 5. I think we're up to 5.
Yeah, I'm
At
counting.
least. Come down to Philly. I'm all set. And I think we were there maybe a month. We had just moved there for about a month. And the company calls me and says, oh, the job fell through. We're not doing the job. I'm like, what? I'm in the city. I don't know anybody except my husband. I mean, I like him, but you know, it's just him. And I don't know what to do. And then I said, well, wait a minute, Terry, you have all this background, right? You have this civil engineering degree, you have the minor architecture, you've been doing buildings in Boston, in Providence, and all these places. You should be able to go to any other building company. I tried. I went to several building companies with my resume and everything, all this background, and I kept getting denied, and I could not figure out what it was. And it was really depressing. And finally, one interview I went on, and the guy said to me, Terry, I gotta tell you something. You do have a lot of background, and we're sure that you could do the job, but we're gonna turn you down too. And I said, can you tell me why? And he said, Boston is not ready for a female to run a construction job in the middle of downtown Boston, or, you know, and it was just blown away. First of all, it was the first time I ever thought of myself as a female, like this unicorn type syndrome. I never saw myself that way. But, you know, on one hand, I was really upset that he said it, but I was also thankful that he was honest enough to say, you know, instead of me just keep hitting my head against the wall, trying to figure out why I wasn't getting it. Then pivot number 6, the depression stage. I really lost confidence in myself. I was really upset, and I walked away from engineering completely. I'll speed this part up. Between then and 2008, so I would say that was about a good, 20 years. I was a substitute teacher. I custom designed saltwater aquariums in mansions all across Philadelphia. I sold, well, actually, if you've ever heard of the website realtor.com, I was hired by realtor.com before they were even public. They were trying to convince real estate agents that, you know, people were going to start looking for real estate on the web. And so it was my job to go to real estate companies and convince these brokers and everything. So I did that. Now, one thing aside, I think maybe a year or two after I decided to walk away from engineering, I decided to get my real estate license. My entire family had been in real estate, and I tried everything possible to not do it. I was like, well, it makes sense to have it. So I had a real estate license, and I loved real estate. I loved it. But, you know, going to realtor.com, that was great. I was doing sales there. I worked for all kinds of like startup internet companies. I have done the gamut, trust me. Probably one of my favorites was the saltwater aquarium thing. Really. And then one day in 2007, I got an email from a friend of mine who said, "Hey, Terry, I'm going to a wedding. I'm sending you 2 pictures. I'm sending you 2 links to 2 dresses I want to wear." I know you're like, what does this have to do with anything? This is pivot number 7. The first link I opened up was a dress that I thought was hideous. It was horrible. And I said, okay, let me not tell her that yet. Let me look at the second link. And when I opened the second link, it went to the Pennsylvania Civil Service Commission. Now, I've heard of civil service commissions on a federal level, but I never knew that a state also had civil service commissions. The Pennsylvania Civil Service Commission is where you go to when you want to work for the state of Pennsylvania. So I was like, okay, this is really weird. Let me just look at this website. And I'm looking and I'm surfing and I went over to the career part of the website. And I opened it up and it said they were looking for a civil engineer trainee. Now, at this point, I have been out of engineering for 15 years. And I'm thinking, there is no way that they would ever hire me with everybody else coming out of college now, you know, like all this stuff. I said, I'm just going to apply just for fun. And I did. I just applied for fun and consider it, you know, put it away. When they called me like 5 months later, the government takes a while. When they called me 5 months later, this was the start of pivot number 8. I didn't remember the application. I didn't remember what aspect of the Pennsylvania I had. I just remembered I applied. You have to take a test and all this stuff. And then they called me in and they were like, we want to interview you. And then it was like, we want to hire you. I was like, okay, what am I doing? Who am I working for? I still didn't know. So, which brings us to 2008. I got hired by the Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission, which is part of civil service. I've been working there since 2008. Started as a civil engineer trainee. My main job is to inspect and investigate natural gas companies. I also to make sure that they're installing gas lines according to federal code. I also investigate natural gas disasters, so explosions, leaks, that type of thing. And so I started that in 2008, and now here are we in 2025. I now have 6 engineers that work for me who do the same thing that I did when I started. And I have the territory of Philadelphia and like the surrounding areas. If anything that's like gas related, we go out and investigate, and you know, we'll do fines and violations to companies here in, you know, you have Con Edison here in the Philadelphia area. We have PECO and Philadelphia Gas Works. And so we go out and we do all these inspections to make sure that they're following a federal code. So there's like this federal Bible, so to speak, that everybody has to abide by. And if they're not doing that, we give them fines and violations. I love this job. I love this job because it combines a lot of the stuff. If you followed all these pivots, right? I got to use some math. I get to work in the dirt all the time. I'm dressed today. I'm like so happy. Normally I'm in, you know, my hard hat, my boots, my steel toe boots, other PPE, and I'm out in the field every day. I'm outside. I don't go to an office. We start, you know, they give us a car. We go directly to our job sites and we inspect all these folks. And the only thing it's missing is the music. But I listen to music on the way from one location to the other. How's that? And that's kind of my pivots.
What happened to the dress?
Yeah, the dress.
Yeah,
I wanted the second dress.
Did you pick the hideous one or you never saw the second one?
I just told her, yeah, whichever one she wanted. I didn't even tell her about that whole thing. I don't know. I don't even know how she made that mistake with that link.
It was to your advantage.
Yeah, it was
meant
to my
be.
advantage.
And you know, when she's talking about how she pivoted back into civil engineering, when I pivot back to nursing, I was in between marketing jobs. And I did not want to apply for a marketing job because it was October. And I didn't want to go back to work anywhere until January. And I was afraid someone was going to hire me. And so I said to my husband, because he was traveling and all, and the basketball season was getting ready to start, I'm just going to do my resume and see what's going on in the health field and nursing. And I did the same thing, and I couldn't believe that I had not done any kind of nursing in over 20 years. And when I did do nursing, I never worked for a hospital. I did a little bit of per diem during the AIDS epidemic. And I was hired within a week, and I could not believe that. So with that being said, never doubt that somebody might be looking at your resume or talking to you and see a quality that you might not see, and they hire you. So don't be fearful of opportunities. As I say, most of my opportunities have been available to me through networking. And so when I went to work for Avon, I actually was at a job fair, and they were looking for a woman who was interested in manufacturing that had a degree. And the only reason I had an interest in manufacturing was because my mother-in-law worked in manufacturing for 20 years for CVS making toys. And she would bring toys home all the time. So you never know how things are going to interlock with your career and what you're doing and the communication that you're having with people. And there's more communication, of course, because you have LinkedIn, there's the internet, but you still have to have face-to-face, I think, in networking.
Yeah, I think, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I think you just need to be open. I actually was talking to some high school students about 2 weeks ago. And, they were sitting there just as bored. I mean, they're like, oh, what is she gonna come and talk about? And I said, you know what, I'm not gonna tell you what to do. I'm not gonna tell you what to major in, because I think sometimes when you think about a major, you feel like you're stuck in your major. Sometimes you think, I don't know what I want to major in, and then you have no confidence in yourself. And the whole thing is as you're talking to people and you're letting people know just what you like, what are you passionate about? If you don't have a passion, do you have a hobby? Do you do something? There's something out there that could put you in a direction that you just never would have thought. If somebody said to me that my life would be what it is now, and I still like to do, I love the job that I have, but I also never ever gave up real estate, so I still do my real estate business on the side a little bit too. So, I'm able to do all that, and I'm meeting people all the time. And, just like Pat said, you just have to be open.
Yeah,
To
you can
what's
have
out
more
there.
than one career. When we
Yeah.
talk about real estate, her father always was my business mentor, and he was a broker. And I still work in real estate. I do rehab, and
Don't you two?
I know.
I know, right?
I just finished a project, but I incorporated this project because in doing nursing and doing senior care, this person was 81 years old and wanted to come back to her house, her home, her apartment. But in doing it, because I've done rehab and I'm certified in ADA, which is the ability to say, okay, you need to have this in your house, you need to have that in your house. I was able to make her apartment for her convenience. She came home yesterday after being in rehab for 3 months. But also I had the ability to know as a nurse, as a real estate person, that I'm not sure she's going to be able to stay in her home long, that she might have to go back to assisted living, or she might have to go to a nursing home. But I made and upgraded her apartment so that it would sell immediately, so that she would have that cash to live off of while she's in this predicament or particular situation in a nursing home. So you have to use your skill sets and be able to know how to expand your knowledge into other things. And that's why I think this panel here has been able to tell you all the different things that they've done. But the next question is, and Terri already answered it, she's loving her job, she's passionate about her job. And I think, Barbara, did you ever find in working with the council, were you passionate about it? Did it become your passion?
It really did. Before I get into that, I just want to say one thing, and I think you brought it up. Sometimes you see that your first job after college could define you. And what I mean by that is some people get stuck because they get a job, they're not sure they really like it, get a job in marketing. And, you were a business major, maybe you did something in marketing. You also don't have to stay with a job. And I've seen people who stay and are unhappy. And there's so much out there. You know, and there's so much ability because there's LinkedIn, there's Idealist, there's all these job search sites. So you have to take the risk and the chance. And what better time to do it when you're young? You don't have a family, you don't have the same responsibilities to earn the kind of money. You could probably, you know, make the same you're making, take a pay cut, and if you love it, you know, I just think it's really important, you know, I've seen some friends who got stuck in law, you know, and in contracts, and they've hated their career. But they didn't make a change early on, and then it was very hard to do a pivot. So just when you get out, you really want to get up in the morning and really love what you do. You spend a long time at work, and if you're not happy, you know, and I've been so lucky, I've had a couple in there that weren't as fun or weren't as rewarding. But I couldn't have stayed 20 years at the Ad Council if I didn't care about the mission and the people and the work we were doing. And when you find that, as I feel like the people on the panel have talked about, it just clicks. And it, you know, it's always work, let's say, but you know, you don't get those Sunday night jitters because you go into a job you really don't like and you don't want to get up Monday morning. So just know yourself. And there's so much opportunity there that you don't, especially when you're young in your career, you don't have to stay somewhere you don't like. You can make changes, you know. I think it's really important to get out there. We keep saying the word networking, you know. And what do we mean by that? Going to events, book signings, volunteer, join organizations, just meeting people. You know, you go to a luncheon, that's where I met Pat. There was a table, no one was assigned a seat, and she sat next to me, and we became friends for life. So you can't define how you're going to meet people, but you got to put yourself out there.
That's
You know,
right.
You just got to put yourself out there.
So Rachel, would you like to add
Yes.
about your passion, what you're doing? Or
So I am agreeing with everyone on the panel. What a great thing it is to be a part of this, right? Be strategic, meaning that, and I like what Barbara said, that if you are in a job, define your job versus career, that you don't like, you don't have to say, I hate my job, I hate my job, I hate my job, and then stay. You can put it where it's supposed to be, like give your job a job and say, you know what, I need you right now to pay my rent today, this month, whatever. But this is what I'm interested in. And if you don't know, think about, like, I know you were talking about it. What are your hobbies? It can leave clues your life. What do I take to? Like if I'm reading, what can I read about all the time? When I'm watching television, what do I like to watch? And if all else fails, when you start journaling, which I love, right? As you see, I'm writing today. Like I learn from everybody and I'm writing little notes about everybody here. And Patricia. So what you do is you write things that give you passion. And if all else fails, call the people that are closest to you. It could be your family, your friends, your good friends, because you'll have friends that, oh, stay with me. Let's just, you know, chill. No, the productive friends, and say, what do you like?
Gotta find those first.
Yeah.
You might have one, which is all you really need. You don't need a whole bunch of people bringing you down and say, don't worry about it. Call in. If you don't like it, call in. No. The people who say, what do you call on me for? What do you like about me? What do I do best? Because the people that are close to you know, because they're the ones that if they're panicked about something or if they don't know something, they'll call you. What kind of friend are you? Ask them those things and then think about it and say, wait, do I really like this? You know, the people who were giving me advice about career said, because you can make money. No, but do I love it? Like, would I be good at it? And those people will know you. Because they'll say, you know, if I need to be on time, I call you. If I need an idea, if I need somebody that I know can do this math problem, I know who to call, you know, things like that. And if I need to know how to pivot, who am I calling, right? So talk to those people and be strategic. So today, yes, you might have to go at whatever, because I don't want to insult a career because we all have something that we're good at. But I might have to go to this job I don't really like, but I might be at that job for 4, 6, 8 hours. And then I go home. Don't just get in the bed because I'm tired. Think about and then get to that networking and say, what meetup groups can I belong to? What networking events can I go to? And LinkedIn, check on the careers and things. And if there is a trainee program that you find, or there's a next up event that they're having and you want to meet people. And then something else that is so meaningful for me, it's my number one thing, find and keep your voice. Whatever that is, when you get to forums like this or anything else, when you meet people, don't just go in and dip in and leave. You don't have to be the most assertive person / aggressive / extroverted person, you can come in and say, hi, my name is Rachel. Nice to meet you. What do you do? Because you can be shy and do that. What do you do? And then let that person talk. Because if they're a talker like me, they're gonna go, oh, well, I do. Tell me about you. And you can get more comfortable with the person, right? That's the way that you do it. Put yourself out there. So find that voice and say, well, my name is Rachel. You know, I really like these particular things, but I'm thinking about my career path and I'm interested in this, but I wanted to know more about it. I see that you do that. Can you tell me more? Because those types of things they give you the mentors, they give you the supporters, they give you the sponsors, those people who tell you to get to the door and then open the door for you because they met you and they say, wow, I really like her. I'm thinking about something and I may have something for you, because I would venture a guess with all the panelists I just met tonight that we've gotten doors open because we've been at the right place and we've asked the right questions.
Or open the right email.
Or open the right email. Which was a mistake email.
Yeah,
And she
right.
didn't just let it go and say, well, I haven't been there 15 years. And it was twice that she said that in her pivots before she could pivot, that she took the opportunity to do something thinking they would never hire me, but she did it anyway. And voila.
And I
Right.
think you said something we haven't really focused on, but it's really important to get a mentor. You
Yes,
know, find someone who you really respect professionally. And you know, people have asked me who I didn't know, young people at the Ad Council would come in, and I would love that they would come in and, you know, do you think you could act as my mentor? And I loved it. I love the role, you know, it's giving back, it's the next generation. So if there's a professor, if there's someone who you care about, who cares about you, it's a wonderful way because you can relate to someone, you can tell them your fears, what you're scared about, and they can help guide your career.
Right.
And it becomes a lifelong relationship. And as a mentor, you feel so good seeing someone's career flourish. So I think it's really critical to have a mentor also.
Absolutely.
I like to add too, because I was working for myself, I continue to work for myself. I always tell people my job really starts after 3 o'clock. Because after 3, I'm getting ready to go to some type of an event. And when I would go to an event and continue to go to events, I look at that event and I set a goal for that event. And with that goal, either I'm going to meet someone, well, I'm always going to meet someone, but I'm really going to focus on one particular person or a particular company. And so that whatever my project is, that person and that who's there is going to be my mentor as a business person, as a businesswoman with her own business. And I'm going to give you an example that it does work, because I think it was 2003 or 2004. It might have been 2003 when I went to news. They would have a reception at the FMI trade show. And that particular year at that reception, they were giving out, I think for the first time, the Bill Geist award. And he was the CEO of Stop and Shop. And when I went to the event, I said, my plan was that I was going to make sure I introduced myself to him. But when I went to the event, I don't think I was there 15 minutes to even get comfortable when he walked up to me. And I had a conversation with him. And from that, he passed away like 10 years ago, but he was like my little teddy bear. I would call him my teddy bear CEO. But that day, and anything I wanted or anything I needed, that day, he was like the best mentor I can have. I really do miss him. But he also introduced me to so many CEOs. So you never know. Never feel like you can't go to a particular event because you don't feel like you're on the same level. Get dressed for that event. Do your homework about who's going to be there. What's the event about? And just put yourself out there. You'd be surprised all the people I've met doing that. And I tell my children that too. My daughter does it well. My son is just getting there. But I just want, I want to present to you that don't just sit at home. Get out there and really put yourself out there. Put your skill set out there. Sell yourself all the time, because you never know who you're going to be with or who you're going to meet or who someone's going to introduce you to. So that's one of the things.
And you know what, in this world of working at home and hybrid, and some companies are all, not healthy for young people. You don't want to sit home in your sweatpants. You're young. You want to meet friends. You want to go out for a
Yes, I
drink.
do.
You might, I might.
No, I'm saying somebody else.
Yeah, so that's why it's even more important for
Yeah,
you to go
get
out, to say, you know, my job starts after 3, because if you've been at a computer all day,
Exactly.
your socialization is those events. And that's what, you know, people would say to me, how do you work at home? But I say, you know, I work for myself, but, you know, I'm out there networking and going to events and spending the time and the money to be at those places to see what's going on with the people that do have to go to a job and educating myself about the different corporations. And a lot of opportunities have come my way from doing that. So, you know, I really want to stress that.
And how do you find events? Just to-
Go online. If you, let's say you're interested, everybody has an event, everybody has a network. So whatever your interest is, first start out with that and go to that event. And a lot of times the events are maybe $50, it could be $100. You know, look at it and see what, you know, what value is that event going to bring there. But don't just go to the event. Go there with a purpose that when I leave that event, I accomplished this, and that's what I do even today. I mean, I'm probably one of the biggest event goers, and I have never left an event without accomplishing what my goal was when I went there.
But you know, Pat, I want to interject because, you know, I realize you guys are here in college, right? You're not gonna spend $100 to go to an event
No,
or
you're
whatever.
still a
the case is.
student, and they all
Yeah,
have
but-
student
But
rates, too.
even here, like at school, like when I came in the door, I think we passed by some billboards or whatever, and there's something going on here. There's a lot going on here. I saw all those things stuck to the billboard and what have you. Just get the practice of going to something that you're uncomfortable with. It could be something, you know, like how to dye Easter eggs, you know, or something just random that you don't have any interest in or whatever, but just step out of your comfort zone and just go to that event and just kind of work on your skills and just kind of talking to somebody.
Yeah,
Because you know, it takes a while. I mean, you know, obviously we've had a lot of experience here, but it takes a while to get to that point. You know, and you've got school, you got classes, you're just trying to get a degree at the moment, right? And get out and do what you gotta do. So use the school here. The school has a ton, I'm sure they have a ton of organizations and what have you. Just go out there, just try one. If nothing else, let's see, what's today's date? Today is the first. Before the end of April, just say, I'm going to find some random networking group here on campus or, you know, or somewhere here in the city that you're gonna go to just to kind of get out of that, like, I don't know if I should go. What am I gonna say? I'm gonna look stupid, you know, what am I gonna wear? Just go.
And get
And then-
one nice outfit. One nice outfit, because you can keep using that outfit.
over and
rotating
over and over.
again.
Can I also say, so you still have meetup.com is still alive and well. And you can filter that for anything you're into. You can say travel, you can say, I love cats, right? They have groups for everybody. You know, I remember one time when I first moved to New York in 2008, I wanted to become a member because I wanted to see they were as a travel group. I came here on my own for my job. We met at a cafe in New York City and they wanted to go backpacking. So I was like, oh, okay, that's not me. Sorry, I need to stay at the hotel. But that's what they wanted to do. So I still met people and it was very nice. So they also have Eventbrite, 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 and you can search your zip code and they'll tell you, and you'll see what's going on. And also you can Google what's going on and you put your zip code in this week, this month, this weekend, whatever. And you can, because I Google that sometimes for my county. I live in Westchester County and I'll put that in there and they'll tell me all kinds of events that are going on. So you can find something. And like, I like how she said, whatever, just to fit in, just not to fit in, but to get exposure.
Just to get-
But you can also say what's going on for people who like to dye Easter eggs. What's
Right,
going on
right,
for
right.
Easter this weekend? What's going on for whatever it is? And New York is so full.
Right. And one other thing I want to add, you should volunteer for an association or a nonprofit that you're going to be passionate about. Like I'm passionate about Alzheimer's. So I've been on there. I've been an advocate for them for the state and city level for like 7 or 8 years. I am able to go up to New York State speaker and say, Hastings, we need money for this, or we need money for that. Or my congressman is Richie Torres. I make sure he knows who I am. So there's ways that you can meet people and network. But one of the things that you're really in right now, and you should know and have a relationship with the president of Marymount Manhattan. And I bet you, do any of you have that relationship?
Do you know where the office is?
Have you met her?
Met him?
Him?
Well, let me just say this, every place I've gone, I know the president of the school, because you know who has the best network is the president of the school. Every president knows somebody. So I suggest before you leave, you make sure you know who the president of Marymount Manhattan is. And speak to him and talk to him and tell him who you are and make sure you stay in communication with him. Because being around academia for 50-something years with my husband and all, I tell every student, you are part of the finances of that university or college. So you need to know who the key players are for the future. You'd be surprised how when you send a note because you need a favor or you need something done, they remember you and you get what you want. That's all I'm gonna say. So, do you have any questions? I think we all finished.
I think so. I think you asked me a question I never answered, but I think.
What was that?
I don't know. I did something about me pivoting, but I went off of Barbara, so I think we're good.
Oh,
You're
okay.
right.
Have you pivoted? Would you mention all the?
Oh,
pivots?
I think I
Oh, she
mentioned the
did.
pivots. Yeah,
Oh,
I mentioned quite a
okay.
bit.
Okay, so do you all have any questions?
You gotta have something.
Some,
Use your voice.
use your voice.
Yeah.
All right.
She's like,
Like,
oh,
I'll do it.
maybe.
I'm
Tell me your name.
Hey guys, I'm Nyla.
Hi, Nyla.
I'm a senior. I'm graduating in May, and I'm a media arts management major with a minor in music industry. It's more of a comment because there's a lot of relatability with you guys. I'm so young. I'm only 20 years old. I turned 21 this month, actually, April 21st. But for the last 3 years, I was in teaching. I worked as an enrichment teacher. I worked as a preschool music teacher for special needs kids, camp counselor, literally so many things with kids. I actually recently just left my job as an enrichment teacher that I was at for 2 years, which was most of my college. And that's because I got a job in business sales. And it was so hard to leave. I think it was
That's me.
or the one, I'm
Barbara.
sorry.
Barbara.
Barbara said something about not letting your job keep you there, right? And it was so hard for me to leave my preschool job because I was there for so long and I'm so young, so I kind of didn't know what to expect. Because obviously with a sales job, it's commission based, so obviously that's a lot of hours and time you gotta put in. And on top of this, I'm a music artist too. So I had to really figure out what I wanted to do, how I was gonna manage my time. But I just kind of wanted to tie that all in to say I totally agree with you guys on pivoting, and I feel it's never ending low key because that one decision I made, I've only been at the job for 4 weeks. I already got promoted to management. And I'm already making double what I made in 2 weeks in a week at my last job.
So
So
you must be a good salesman. Don't forget that
a good move.
with all that teaching experience, you can be a trainer.
Yeah.
And if you're pursuing music, you can do substitute teaching a couple of days a week. So always think about how you can pivot back and forth to get to the main goal, the finish line.
Are you happy with what you're doing now?
I honestly am. And it's so funny because life is just so unpredictable. I never thought I would be in the circumstance. And also I'm very money motivated. Obviously the whole point
Did
of
you
me
know
being
that?
in this job
Yeah.
is to fund my music career because that's what you guys were saying. That's my hobby. That's
Right.
really what I want to do. That is what I do. But it's expensive.
Mhm.
So for example, last week my paycheck was only 500 and I quadrupled that for this week. So that's how I just want to say that to be you guys are really inspiring and just like keep pushing through, like keep going.
Yes.
Keep working, like you literally never know where life will take you, so.
Absolutely.
And like also like you guys being women and then like Black as well, I love it.
Thank you,
Thank
Diana.
you.
Thank
And let me
you.
just say this, I know we don't have any men on the panel, but I do know a lot of men and men have helped me.
Oh,
So,
Absolutely.
so
My
make
mentor is a
sure
man
you
Good.
network with women and men.
Absolutely.
And, you know, minorities, it's a gamut out there now.
Yeah, like she said, we need our allies.
You need your allies.
We need everyone.
So,
Thank you for that.
thank you.
Yes.
I just think it's really refreshing to know that you guys did pivot so much and like with you starting your career in sports, like I'm a dance major first, that's why I came to this school. But I really enjoy business also, and like this also was a really good thing for my dad. He like loved this.
Yeah, you can't. forget the dance.
So getting 2 degrees has been very like good, but I also like, I didn't realize how much I would enjoy this. And my mom's a dance school, so like there's just so many things, but like first I want to audition, so it's just like knowing like that my trajectory is probably long term, like to cover all bases, which I can do. But now I also have another element of I lost my brother due to gun violence. So we're starting a foundation, which I'm all in for that. So it's just like how to like split your time and like feel like you're giving, because I'm extremely passionate about all of these things. And I just like, I don't know, that's why I think graduation is like so scary right now, because it's like, okay, go do all the things you want to do right now. You
But
know?
remember, everything, I always say to people, everything is a business.
Right.
So you need to understand the process of whatever it is you're passionate about or whatever it is that you're doing, because it is a business. And at the end of the day, they're gonna be looking at numbers and how much money's coming in and how much money's going out. And always, I'm an operational person and I always say to people, the salesperson can bring in $10 million, but if you're spending 12 million in your operations, you lost 2 million. So always keep that in mind.
What's your name?
Ava.
Ava.
Hi, Ava.
Hi, Ava.
Yes.
Nice to meet you
You
too.
too. Any other questions from the guys? At least one from the guys?
I just wanted to say though, Ava, like you said, you're graduating, so you're getting ready to have to do that adulting word, right? What intimidates you the most from all that you said? You have such a broad skill set. You're thinking a lot of things.
I think honestly, it's doing my brother justice, and I
Absolutely.
want to perform, like that's my dream, but like also he was my twin, so like
Oh,
I
wow.
just feel such a need for that, and I don't want to not dance. But I really want to do him right.
You can do both.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
Ava, your
It
foundation
could be the
could
dance.
be
Yeah.
dance and the
Right.
business
Yes,
aspect,
pick up.
you know, you're looking at how the money's coming in for the foundation
And do events.
and do events to
Yeah.
build money for that,
Right.
so,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'll also say there's a saying that you can have everything you want, just not at the same time.
Time, yes.
So Ava, you have a twin, you have somebody that's so close to you that is now not there in body, but in spirit. He would want you to be successful at whatever you're doing. You're always doing him justice by being the best you can be. So you can do that foundation. I'm not telling you not to, but just as you doing your reflection and your writing, think about, what do I do now? Because I can't do everything. Like she said, you don't want to do things at the detriment of your livelihood with the money. So think about, I want to honor you, brother. So let me see what I do now. Maybe it's the dance now. Maybe it's the foundation. Be strategic. Maybe it's the foundation in January 2026. I'm not telling you not to. Or maybe it's foundation now. It's the dance between. I can do all those things, but don't put yourself so that you're scrambling and you're unhappy. And you can say, like, brother, which one should I do first?
Yeah.
You can honor him by all the things that you're doing. You don't have to hurt yourself.
So the two of you have a question, at least one? Good.
All right, John.
So this is
A
something,
lot of good notes over here.
I see.
this is something that, because I'm also a graduating senior, and so I'm kind of coming up on like this kind of point in my life where it's like, you know, I need to kind of take that next like level up in life. And so like, what are some ways I should go about like thinking about like making this pivot and like, you know, looking for new opportunities in the world, especially like, you know, I've had a lot of like lower level jobs and I've had like a lot of experience just like, you know, in like lower level sales and like retail. And it's like, how do I take that and like find something that's next?
What is your interest first?
What's your
I really-
major?
Yeah, what's
Okay,
your
I'm a business and arts management major.
Okay.
I had to drop it, but I had a dance minor. I really like the arts. I really like working with people. I've been thinking about maybe doing more like people kind of management, working with people. I'm not really sure though, like what I want to do, because I feel like there's just like so many like different like directions and options and like places I could go. But it's like, how do I even like narrow it down into like one thing or like,
Well, maybe you
Um,
don't have to. Maybe you
right.
just start with one, right? You say you like people management.
Yeah.
Maybe you do something, it might be a volunteer, it might be an actual job. And while you're there, you're figuring out, well, yeah, what aspects of this do I like? What aspects don't I like? Is this something I can see
Yeah.
doing long term? And if the answer at any point is nope, this is not something like, then here comes pivot number one. Don't count them like I do, because you will lose count, trust me. But you know what I'm saying, but you will, even if you end up not liking it ultimately, you will have learned something there that you can use for the
Right.
next part.
Everything
So,
you do, you can use
Yeah,
as you go
And-
through the journey.
Open the world of nonprofit.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the business world has wonderful opportunities, but there are wonderful not-for-profits where you can work in business, you could be a CFO in a not-for-profit, you could be a fundraiser, you could be in personnel, anything that looks like a for-profit business, you sort of mirrored in that not-for-profit world. So, you know, if someone's an animal lover, you know, or you have a passion, you can find a not-for-profit. And sometimes there might be a low-level job that doesn't sound like it's gonna be that interesting, but it's a way in. And if you prove yourself and people start noticing you, other opportunities happen within that company. So it might not be the ideal job getting in,
right.
but it's a foot in the door in a place you think you care about and like. And opportunities then can come from that for sure. It's overwhelming, you know, when you start, because the world's so big, and I think narrowing it down on interests and all, and then just go for it. You know, don't pressure yourself that you're gonna find that ideal first job, you know? Just get out there. It's nice if you do, but you know, you're gonna get work experience.
My
You're
dad
gonna
used to
meet
have
people.
this word, he used to always say next. And I was like, he used to just he would just throw it out there, and it used to upset me because I thought it was so cold. But I get it now, you know, his whole thing was don't stay in a situation or don't continue with, you know, with an action that doesn't produce something that's good for you. Just know next, you move on to the next thing. Be it in a job, be it in a relationship, be it in anything, it's like next, and you go from there. You gotta put yourself first.
John, what has been your relationship with the Career Center here at Marymount?
it hasn't been much, honestly. I've had like, because like for me, I remember like when I first started, I used the Career Center to like look for jobs. But then I found a job and I've been working there for the past 2 years. So I haven't like needed to like really be thinking about it at all. So it hasn't.
And what has that job been for the last 2 years?
I've been working at Keels, the store on the Upper West Side. So if you ever want to see me come in.
72nd or
76 and 70.
76?
Or it's about there.
Yeah.
No, 67 and 60. It's about there. It's right on Columbus. But
Yeah.
I walk there and I just get there somehow.
No, exactly.
The reason why I mentioned the Career Center is because you've been here the entire time. They kind of know you and before they can, you know, relate to what you're doing in the classes you've taken. And they can also be someone to help you as you are going through, like, this is what I've done. These are the classes that I've taken. What are your thoughts? It's like a resource that's already right close there at hand.
Yeah.
So do that and also stay aligned with alumni centers and things like that, because you never know what comes up, which could actually come to you at the college, an opportunity that you never even thought of. But it is closely aligned with what you've been doing already with your classes, your major, your inside interest. I would give them a try.
Do you have anything? Or you just listening? I'm taking it in.
I have a question for Rachel, actually. It's a little
What's your
like
name?
complex. I'm Christopher, by
Hi,
the way. Nice to
Christopher.
meet all of you.
Nice to meet you.
So you said that you work in like supply chain and everything.
Yes.
And so when you said that, I thought of manufacturing.
Mhm.
So from what I know of, with the current administration in the US is bringing a lot of like investment to the US, especially with manufacturing. Like they're bringing a lot of, I guess, opportunity in a way where they want people to be building products in the US,
Right.
which completely changes the supply chain. How do you like, what do you think about that? Like, how do you think that will change the supply chain?
It
That's a
changes.
loaded question.
I know.
Up for that one.
Okay, Christopher, you know what? It makes us have to be, like, one of the things, you know, when we were prepping for this and I was prepping, Patricia said, you know, just talking about things like skills. If I think about supply chain, you have to be nimble, flexible, agile, all the same thing, right? Open-minded. And to be honest, I wish we had more time, right? But we get this notice that things are gonna be, you know, build all these tariffs, and then they say, okay, and now, and we're looking at tomorrow, literally tomorrow.
And
April
it's all
2nd.
upended.
Yeah. Yes, it's tomorrow. First it was last month and now it's tomorrow. So yes, even with COVID, wish we had more time, but we don't. So the way I'm thinking is that's when the flexibility has to come in. When I look at, it's good that we'll have opportunities for local, because, you know, we like made in the USA labels and things, but we have to plan properly. And if you give us more time, then we can manufacture and get things done more here. But you don't give us more time, so there will be a disruption. But where there's disruption, there's always opportunity.
Yeah.
You know, I took this class one time, it says you have to disrupt, you have to break down in order to spring back up, but it's disruption. And so now we have to think of that pivot word. What can we do now? What can we get from local people? And also for us, we think about what opportunities can we have locally, things that we would have thought of before. So if I had to buy something here, where can I buy it here? So anybody who's an entrepreneur in the US, this is your time to really raise your hand and spring up. Anybody who's, would you raise your hand? Yes, it's time to spring up in the US. And it's time for us to look at alternatives, and we can't wait. We have to be flexible today.
Yeah.
What do you think is your final outcome in terms of the prices of things? Do you think that because it's made in the US, like things would get cheaper over time, like long term? Or that would it be more expensive? Like what's your
Yeah,
view?
longer term, it has to go down. Expensive first, yes, because like I was saying before, our rates are land,
Mhm.
our minimum wage, all these things, everything's more expensive here anyway. But if more people start producing, you know, it's supply and demand. If you have more people producing, like say you have shirts, more people, like today, you might have 2 people producing shirts and it's more expensive. But then they say there's a need for shirts because there's going to be a 25% upcharge to get it from another country. So now you're going to make sure, because we have more demand and the price has to go down. So eventually, yes, but immediately, no.
Yeah, it's a lot, you know, it doesn't happen overnight,
No.
right? So when people say bring auto plants to the United States, well, how long do we think it takes to build an auto plant? The factory floor, right?
And
Things
all the
like that.
systems that the supply chain.
Yeah, so things could be more
We should have
expensive
been able to
until.
keep stuff in the US. I used to say 25 years ago, everybody can't sit at a computer. And we're gonna wind up sending everything out, and we're gonna have to wind up bringing it all back, and they're actually doing that now, trying to bring it back.
There are
Yeah.
only 2 cars that have most of them, their parts. I mean, there's only 2 brands of cars. That's it. So that's why you see people flocking to the car to buy a car now before they can. So now, to your point, they're gonna have to start making it here. If nothing changes. But even if it doesn't, then because we have this threat that we should have been already anticipating because of COVID and, you know, you had to.
Yeah, I mean, it's upended during COVID a bit and now it's getting upended now. So
Right. But because we saw these 2 threats, we should now start doing more things local because it could happen again.
that makes sense. Thank you for your.
You're welcome. Are you thinking about supply chain?
I just thought it was interesting. Like I'm very interested with like everything that's happening now. It's like it all seems very new, and so I'm just like very interested in, I guess, the macroeconomic aspects of all of those
Right,
things.
right.
Like the broader ways it affects the world. I
Mhm.
guess, so yeah.
Well, they say the US sneezes, the world catches the cold. You ever heard that? That's the macroeconomics. That's interesting.
Any other questions? You're the only one that didn't ask a question, so now.
No pressure.
Oh, what is your major within business and your name?
Marketing, right now, entrepreneurship. I'm Grace. I'm also graduating this year. And I was working in construction as a project manager for the last 3 years in the Westchester area too. You probably heard, but it's LRC Construction. Down Westchester, they just knocked down the White Plains Mall.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I loved it. I was very surprised. I love construction as well. And actually, I was just promoted as their marketing director down
Oh,
there.
congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been the last like 9-10 months and I love it. And I'm just trying to expand into real estate more and I'm just absorbing everything you guys said. Yeah, you said kind of going into real estate,
Yep.
so.
Great.
very
Make sure you
helpful.
connect with
Good for
Terri.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she connect with Terri.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting I'm studying right now to get my real estate license
Okay.
here in New York City
Mhm.
to try and make some more money after I graduate and just try and go more into real estate and that sort of things.
Well, you can't be too shy.
Right? I was gonna say, you're like shy.
Yeah, really. She's like, I'm doing this, I'm doing
Yeah.
that.
Try.
Yeah. Very nice.
You're just shy for the moment.
No, I am.
Okay.
Keep your voice, Grace. It's a wonderful voice.
Voice,
Keep it.
yes.
awesome.
Yes. Okay,
Time to say thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to ask my students to thank you with something.
oh,
Special.
John, you can try.
Oh, yeah.
And Nyla, you can join
Wait,
in
I'm the only
too.
one that's not.
No, come on.
Oh, thank you.
Ava, there's one more.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
No? Okay.
You guys.
Thank you guys so much. Great meeting you guys.
so make sure you, share this opportunity.
Of course.
Yeah, yeah.
Take a picture together.
Now it's gonna be broadcast. It's recorded, so we're gonna be uploaded.